Before we begin operating the machine in a cut scenario, we have to make sure that the dust collector is on. So we turn the dust collector on by flipping this switch, and you will hear the air start to rush through the ducts. The air must be on before every cut. Otherwise, a lot of debris will build up in the shop, and a lot of sawdust will accumulate. The Techno Isel tool changer requires a pneumatic pressure. It must be high enough for the tool changer to open and close. So before you start running the machine, the compressor needs to be on and the pressure needs to build up. So you can't operate the machine right away. You're going to need to wait for at least 10 to 15 minutes while the pressure builds up, and then you can safely operate the machine. If you do not do this, the tool changer will not open and close. Something to keep in mind, if the tool change happens and it freezes in the middle of the tool change, it's because there is a loss of air pressure. So at that point you would stop the machine and restart the machine. But loss of the air pressure during a cut is a very critical error, and you must stop the cut immediately, because without the air pressure you will not be able to safely operate the machine. So before we get started with the cut, we're going to need to make sure that we have our sacrificial board. The sacrificial board should be at least 3/4 of an inch, so that when we cut through the top board into this, we don't risk hitting the vacuum fixture or the table itself. The vacuum table needs to have isolated zones. These foams create little pockets of suction when we turn the vacuum on. And if you don't have the foam around a perimeter of your open holes, you're going to need to put in these little silicone plugs. This will keep the pressure building up high enough to hold the board down during the cut. Each zone is isolated with these isolation valves. So this valve is now open when it's in line. This valve is now closed when it's perpendicular to the line. You should start the machine with all of the valves closed, allowing the vacuum pressure to build up. As soon as you're ready to operate the machine, the way it's currently set up, we have this zone, the center zone, and the left zone. Anything that's not used, we will not turn it on. So we will not turn on this zone or this zone. So while we are using the machine, we will turn on this zone, and the end zone. And once these are open, your workpiece will not slide around on the top of the table. Now that we've made sure that our zones are isolated and the foam is in the right position and the plugs are everywhere that we don't have any foam, we're ready to slide our workpiece into position. So you want to slide it so that the corners are even with the corners here. So let's slide it a little bit more. And then let's check also over here on this corner. Oh, that looks like we're just right. So now with the workpiece in the right position, now it's time to turn on the vacuum table. The vacuum table switch is located on the front of the controller. We're now going to wait for about a minute while the pressure builds up in the system. Then we're going to open our zones 1, 3, and 5, and that will pull this straight down to the vacuum table, and then we're ready to start our cut with our workpiece nice and secure. As I open zone 1, watch the wood go right down. Okay. Zone 2. And zone 3. Okay. We're now ready to start the cut. Workpiece is nice and secure. You can give it a little push, but it's not going to go anywhere. If you can push this a little bit, then the zones have not been properly isolated. So then you would remove the board and make sure that your zones are set up correctly. Before we start operating the 50/50 Techno Isel, we have to make sure that both of our power switches are on. We now are in the on position, and we're ready to turn our gear on. Make sure this switch is down, allowing the air to flow through and into the machine. Next, we're ready to turn the computer on. Together. Come down here. Okay. Laminate first. Right? Okay. So before we start any of the automatic setup processes, we have to check to make sure that the pneumatic system will grab our tool holder. This is called an ISO 30 tool holder. So we place it, being very careful not to get your hand close to this, and we press the green button that's on the side. That's how we check to make sure that the automatic tool changer is ready to work. Carefully press the button one more time to release the tool holder. And let's place that back in the tool holder position number 2. Okay, so let's start the Techno CNC interface, and now we're ready to go to Home, All. Swing the video camera. The home position is in the back corner all the way up. You must turn the machine before every cut, every time the machine turns on. Okay? We're ready to grab tool number 1. Okay? So let's say tool. We're going to say tool change and tool number 1. Now we've entered number 1, click OK. And we see that the machine is moving, so stay out of the way of the machine as it comes and grabs tool number 1. If anything goes wrong at that position, grabbing tool number 1, you must hit the emergency stop button. Hit it down, okay? Next, we're going to do a touch-off over here to learn the tool's length, the height of the tool, okay? So let's go back onto the screen. Let's say tool. We're going to say learn tool length number 1. Yep. Okay, let's try that again. So tool, learn tool length number 1. And now the machine is going to come over here and come over to the touchpad. The descent is very slow, so you'll have to be patient. Exactly how long tool 1 is. So when we call tool number 1 in your program, it will be ready to cut at just the right depth. Okay? Now let's unload tool number 1. So let's say tool, tool change. Now we want tool number 2. Now this tool is going to go back in the tool number 1 position. We're going to unload that, then we're going to go and grab tool number 2. For it to learn the tool number 2 overall length. So let's click on tool, learn tool length 2. Now we're going to move back to the touchpad. Don't become impatient. The descent is very slow to avoid a very serious accident. So let it go down slowly, and it will slowly touch and determine the length of the tool. surface height of our work. So let's jog the machine over using the control system. And so let's go in the X positive direction. Good. Keep going. Keep going. A little bit more. Let's slow your speed down to about 50. Good. Alright. Now let's come this direction, so that's Y negative. which direction is which. This is your X positive direction, and this is your Y positive direction. X positive, Y positive. So let's put the touch plate down. Make sure the touch plate is directly underneath the point. Okay. Let's say C negative, and I want you to be very careful not to put that too many times because this is going to be down now.
Okay.
Okay. So let's do that a little bit more. Bring it down to about right here. Okay, stop it. Okay. The touch plate is directly underneath the point. Now we are free to do the next step. So we're going to say tool, touch off Z0Z position, and now it's slowly going down. Be patient. This is for your safety and the safety of the machine, that it doesn't move any faster. If something goes wrong, you should be ready to touch the emergency stop switch. When this is done, we put it back in the holder on the side of the machine. Okay. We're now ready to load the program.
Move the cutter over the lower left-hand corner of the workpiece and click 0x and 0y in the interface.
To get the program, we would say File, and then let's go to a different E drive. Let's look at Burlingame. Let's hit the letter B. Click down here. Click right here. And say B. Okay, go down. Burlingame. New plaque, version 12. Say okay. Okay. Now that we've successfully loaded our program, we're ready to pre-process the program. Good. So we've seen that we're pre-processing, and now we're going to look at a preview of our program. This program only uses one tool, the engraving tool, to do all of the work. Since we have two tools, we not only could do the engraving, but we could also cut this out of the board. Let's look at our top view and hit zoom fit. Zoom fit. Okay. Pay a special close attention to the red corner. The red corner here is your Y and your X axis. On the machine, when we set up to cut, this is your Y and this is your X axis. So you have to make sure you have enough room in both directions, just like you see on the preview. So this looks good. That's awesome. So let's go to side view, zoom fit. Pay extra close attention to this now. This is a little different because this is how far down we're going into the material, past the top of the workpiece. So you want to be watching out if any of these motions are down here. That's going to be a crash. So you want to be very careful that all of these moves, they're not too far down. And so we can see that our Z0 plane is represented by this red line, and we're not going too deep. We're just going just barely into it to do an engraving. So that's just right. Okay. Now that we've checked the program for safety, we're ready to set up and run the program. So let's exit. the shroud in place, we're now ready to set up the rest of the machine.
Okay, making a fish? No.